I know everyone and their mom has already talked about Wish, but I really want to talk about it too. I think it's safe to say that Disney is a franchise that can be beloved to the vast majority of people. It's something I grew up with in my childhood, something I still indulge and watch today. The movies that come from Disney are the most talked about when it comes to the topic of animation studios, and I'm a big fan. As an artist, I've always looked up to Disney and other animation studios ever since I was a kid as a huge inspiration to draw, create, and discover. So, knowing that Wish was coming out, I already knew that once the trailer dropped and the marketing and previews were circulating everywhere that it was going to be a rocky ride with this one. Wish was advertised as this exciting, monumental movie being labeled as Disney's 100th-year celebration film. And when it got announced a long time ago, I was really excited to hear about it. It was going to be a new original Disney movie with a new storyline, and I wanted to like it so badly, despite critiques like Asha looking too visually like Isabella Madrigal, or the art style choices throwing people off and looking unrendered, or the songs just generally sucking really badly. I wanted to throw all of those opinions in the back burner of my head and go, no. I wanted to go into this movie blind so I don't have a biased opinion. And then I watched it and I had to say I was frankly disappointed like most others ended up being. I always tell others who unwillingly listen to me ramble about Disney movies that the last good movies that we had under the Disney/Pixar umbrella were the trio of Encanto, Luca, and Turning Red. And yeah, I'm including Turning Red. I like Turning Red. For Town for Life. And it's really sad to see all these other Disney movies that came out after these three be super weak and unimpactful. Like, have you seen the gigantic boom that was the Encanto and Luca fandoms back on TikTok? I don't think any other Disney Pixar films would be on that level for a very long time. Now, why am I disappointed, may you ask? Sure, the animation is beautiful and lively despite what others say, and there are actually some songs that go hard. Not yours, sorry King. But I think overall, it's the execution and the writing of the stories and the characters. Whenever I get myself into new media, I always focus on the stories as well as the characters. Especially the characters. You can have the best story in the world, but when your characters fall flat, that's when you know you kind of failed to capture the audience. Oftentimes, people look towards the characters to either relate to or to hold on to their endearment, and it's a reason why whenever people talk about their favorite media, oftentimes the question of who your favorite character comes into play. And unfortunately, with both storytelling and character building, Wish is extremely weak, and it made me disappointed. So disappointed that I decided to take matters into my own hand and see what would happen if I rewrote it myself. So, first off, what's the original story of Wish? Wish is about a girl named Asha who lives in the city of Rosas, a kingdom founded by the great wizard, King Magnifico, who built the kingdom up of his beloved queen. King Magnifico thinks nothing is more important than a wish of the deepest desires of a person and collects said wishes from his subjects. Then, he will protect the wishes on his own, but grants one wish every month with a wishing ceremony, but to only those he sees benefits the kingdom. Asha, wanting to help grant her grandfather's wish for his birthday, applies to be the king's assistant. But after realizing the king's true intentions to keep the wishes for himself, to selfishly grant when it benefits him, and not giving them back to the people, Asha gets upset. She wishes on the stars for something more for the people of Rosas, and the star comes down to assist Asha. With the help of the star, Asha tries to get the wishes of her family back to them, as well as potentially freeing the other wishes for the people. Writing the synopsis made me realize how good this concept is, but the execution falls flat. If you haven't watched it already, I feel like it would be easier if you had, just so my points are more clear, since I don't think I'll be summarizing the scenes in detail as other review videos might do. Spoiler warnings for the rest of the video. Like many people have already pointed out, Asha falls victim into Disney's latest bloom, a protagonist with an adorable personality. Silly, quirky, lighthearted, it's honestly one that I do like, but after multiple Disney protagonists with the same personality, it's hard to distinguish these protagonists as their own character. But at the very least, there are other traits to back them up somehow, and to also explain why they are the way that they are. Rapunzel and Anna are examples of girls who were shut in from their respective outside worlds, therefore having a bit of a quirky, silly personality that makes sense. Moana struggles with the journey of being the one to save her island and uses her motivations and goals to sail and be with the water to help her in Maui. Mirabel puts her energy in her extroverted personality in order to prove that she can be a part of the family without a magical gift like the others. Asha is silly for the sake of being silly. And of course we don't need an explanation for girls to be silly. I think for the objective goals in the story, however, I wish she was a little bit more serious as a protagonist. Being goofy is all that Asha has, and there's nothing more to her, unfortunately. Yes, she's lighthearted and fun, but what other traits does she have? Asha doesn't have a set goal or motivator that really ties down to her deep connection and drive as a character. She does want everyone to be able to have their wishes and to not be held by Magnifico, but I think the way it was executed was a little weak. You can argue that her mother and Saba are her motivators in the story, but they barely got any screen time to argue for it. She went from someone who is very nervous and silly, who can't get her interview questions right, to someone who could so easily object against the king and his procedures within the next 10 minutes. In the beginning, you could see her act as a tour guide, but it mostly demonstrates how well she can get along with the people, but we never got to see exactly how she's so well connected with the people. Before the interview with King Magnifico, Queen Amaya says that she sees the way that she looks out for people. But like, where and when? We never got to see why she's so great or a significant member in the city. If we establish that Asha is well connected with the kingdom, then that would prove to the audience that yeah, why wouldn't somebody who's so kind-hearted and giving not be fit for the king's apprentice? For Asha's backstory, Asha has a clear connection through the stars through her experiences with her late father, but this backstory was never fleshed out. The first mention of her father was through the interview with King Magnifico, and I feel like that was almost a little too forced in. In the dialogue, it wasn't really expressed in an organic way. Maybe he could have been brought up briefly in the beginning scenes of Asha and her family to allude that he's important to her, but he's not physically in her life anymore. The wishing tree, her father, and the symbolism of stars are very important to Asha, but it is never shown. The movie should have established that relationship prior instead of suddenly talking about it in her interview. This is also a very weird tangent that jumps throughout the timeline of the movie, but she also mentions that her father said that they're connected to the stars, and that line contains no meaning for the remainder of the film, only to be tied by the end of the climax when she says we're all stars. Like, I was only able to catch that upon second rewatch that literally meant that people Rosas were stars themselves, but that's something I'll discuss later in the video. But the point is, stars are very important to Asha's character and her story, yet it was not emphasized enough. So how would I rewrite Asha? I think I would want Asha to have distinguished characteristics that would separate her away from other characters that we've already seen. I would want Asha to be a little bit more reserved and strong-willed who evidently cares for the people around her. She would be selfless and strive to help others always, which is why she so badly wants to grant the wishes of other people. In addition, I would want Asha to be almost a little recklessly selfish. Dahlia even says in canon that Asha cares too much and that's one of her weaknesses, but we've never actually seen that weakness in canon. You could be able to see her maybe giving her all, maybe almost getting herself hurt for the sake of assisting other people in Rosas. She's giving but almost too giving, and this could also be a slight flaw in her character, something that could potentially cause conflict, but it can also be her motivator. For her and canon to be a little too by the rules, it almost seems a little weird that she would suddenly go against the rules of the kingdom and against Magnifico himself. To me, it would make more sense if Asha had a huge sense of justice for the people, and that would be her motivator. King Magnifico. Oh my gosh, I think I have too much to say about King Magnifico. King Magnifico as a concept as well as a villain was just such wasted potential all around. Inspired a bit by Schifferell's Productions video about this topic, I agreed when he said that it was like two different types of people were trying to write for him. In canon, Magnifico expresses to Asha that he also experienced loss in the past. He seems to have come from humble beginnings of a farmer family, or at least one who had their own land, but it was burned down and destroyed by thieves. Because of this, his goals of building the city of Rosas was to create a kingdom in which people can be safe. Although it's a nice backstory, it's completely irrelevant to the story at hand. In what way does his story have in relation to wishes? Why is it that he believes there's nothing more important than a wish from one's heart? What's the true motivator of him learning magic, since we know his entire demeanor was a facade? Because of these hints to his backstory, the writers built him up to be maybe somebody that the audience can sympathize with, but it all turns into a 180 as once Magnifico turns to dark magic, he just turns into a huge villain who is bad for the sake of being bad and 100% evil and irredeemable. Like, are we looking at the same character? You can argue that this personality switch was completely influenced by the dark magic, but even so, a risk like this is something that a master magician shouldn't have even considered until the very last resort. And again, the story never gave us a valid threat to justify the usage of the book. Magnifico himself said not to touch or use. My rewrite of Magnifico can actually go two different routes: redemption or true evil. In the context of the canon material, the redemption path makes the most sense for this rewrite, but I also want to explore the options of a true Disney villain like the movie attempted and wanted to make. If we were going with the redemption route, I would want to be able to keep the concept of loss in his backstory, but with a different approach. Maybe Magnifico was a kid who dreamed and wished to be a great wizard who knew the most powerful spells, but because of his low status, it was unheard of, especially for what happened with his family. It could be that he took it upon himself to study magic and build up the city of Rosas. He could keep his want to protect the people and to keep their wishes, something that nobody was ever to do for him as a kid, and it causes the king to get a bit of an ego to be the sole person that the people can rely on. Because of his skill with magic, he truly believes that he's the only person who's allowed to grant wishes because he's the only one worthy of doing so. He truly believes that what he's doing is a good thing, keeping the wishes safe, but also fails to realize that he's hurting his people by doing so. Because of his mentality, once Asha rebels against him and the people start to question him, his backstory can truly turn into the "this is the things I get." Which, speaking of, I feel like instead of its upbeat poppy tune, it should have been more sinister, spiteful, and threatening, almost as if he's at his breaking point. The second version of Magnifico is if he were to just straight up be evil. This is a lot shorter than the previous version, but if he were to be a lot less complex, simply vain, cunning, his personality wouldn't have any snippets of his endearing uncle type personality. His backstory would be something along the lines with him still believing that wishes are important, but he was unable to get his own, so he took it upon himself to take control of everyone else's. There is no sense of remorse. He would be your typical unapologetic Disney villain. But then again, we have a lot more to work with in the redemption route, so again, we're going to keep it that way. Queen Amaya. As much as I appreciate how gorgeous her design is, Queen Amaya was not really needed as a character and simply acted as the passive person in the right to contrast Magnifico being in the wrong. Either she shouldn't have been there at all, or she should have also been evil, like in the concept art. I know I said I wouldn't go back to it, but it's really too good. I don't really think I can rewrite Amaya in a way where she is intriguing, but maybe her dynamic with Magnifico can be fleshed out a little better. If I were to believe that the two love each other so much that they would build a kingdom together, then why is Magnifico so quick to dismiss Amaya and any potential thoughts and opinions that she has? I wish that Amaya would be more of his voice of reason, in a sense where like she is more stern. And as much as Magnifico loved her, his love for himself and his pride takes over, therefore succumbing to the dark magic to save his reputation. Other than fleshing out their dynamic more, I think Queen Amaya would relatively be the same. Star and Valentino. Unfortunately, Star and Valentino were there to be cute, marketable plushies and nothing else, although I'm a victim of wanting Star merch. As cute as they are as the mascots of Wish, I was wanting more involvement of the characters into the story, and if anything, they hinder the story and causes a lot more problem than help for Asha. Like, the forest animals helped Asha a lot more than Star and Valentino really did. Instead of causing chaos in the kitchen, they could have acted as distractions for Asha to get into the castle, or they could have just been helpful assistants to guide her. For Valentino in particular, him obtaining his voice is purely for comedy reasons, and although it can be funny, it's mostly useless for storytelling reasons. Like, what if Valentino had this Bibble equivalent scene where he distracts the guards with his newfound voice, and for Asha to get into the castle? That would have been really funny. And for Star, what if there were more examples of its pure magic and using it to their advantage? Example, Asha and the others are about to be attacked by the knights inside the castle, but Star lets out its joyful magic and calms down the anger of the knights, causing them to get that old spark of inspiration and happiness. I know it's relatively a movie more catered towards kids, but it's the constant silliness that seems like an attempt for a laugh rather than a character. It's never really shown how important Star is, and it kind of just exists. I'm super heavy on Star because it's supposed to act like an opposing counterpart to Magnifico, someone who spreads pure magic for love and passion and not for selfish or dark intent. Star really only had that one beginning burst after Asha's song, and that was the only threat to Magnifico's magic that we got. If we were to show how strong Star's magic really is, it would support Magnifico's need to defeat Star, but also obtain its magic. If I'm being honest, I actually enjoy the concept of these 7 friends. I'm a sucker for a tight-knit gang in media, so it's unfortunate that these characters had no true impact on the story. They're not truly memorable in any way. The only ones I can really think of making somewhat of an impact are Dahlia, Simon, and Gabo. And okay, I know they're based off of the 7 Doors, but there was no way that anybody who's a casual watcher would really catch on to that. You can also argue that it's hard to feature a gigantic cast in a single movie, but that's also not true. The vast majority of the Madrigals in Encanto are memorable, if not every single one. I can name every single member of this family upon first watch, whereas I only know the names of these friends for Wish because I had to look it up for this video. I watched this movie a second time around for this video, and I gotta say honestly, knowing who these characters were supposed to be, they didn't do too bad with displaying their dynamics. I just think they didn't do enough to show who they were as individual characters. Cough cough cut out, I'm a star. There's a total of 3 significant scenes that we only had with these characters. The introductory scene, the scene where they all meet Star, and then the scene where they all get together to sing the group song. And I think they really should have tried to attempt to get more screen time for each of the friends together to show their relationship and to hash out their dynamics more. Let's go through every character briefly. Dahlia is a representation of Doc. I think we're gonna keep her the same. She's like the leader of the group and can be the voice of reason for Asha and her potential impulsive decisions. Gabo is a representation of Grumpy. We can keep him the same as well. He's cynical and he's like an anti-Asha who's a pessimist. Hal is the representation of Happy. She was kind of there to just be there, and it's a little sad. I think she could potentially be the peacemaker of everybody whenever they have conflicts, potential conflicts caused by Gabo, of course, and she could be extremely positive and look on the bright side when bad things happen, especially with the conflict of Magnifico. Safi is the representation of Sneezy. He was for comedy relief, I guess. I guess there's not much to him that we can really keep him the same, but I think it's funny to think about chickens being the only thing he isn't allergic to, hence why he loves him so much. Daria is the representation of Dopey. I actually kind of like Daria's character, but in a sense where he reminds me of other characters like Z and Jeff from Total Drama, going with the flow and being a little goofy that people don't really believe him when he talks about real things that happen. We're gonna keep him the same too. Bazima is the representation of Bashful, and I actually think that her popping in and disappearing out of nowhere for comedy relief is gold, but I wish she did it a little bit more often and not just for Gobbo. I think if they milked her gimmick a little bit more, it would have stood out. Simon is a representation of Sleepy. Of course I would want to keep his betrayal since it's integral to the story, but I wish we had a little more to him because the said betrayal was a little out of the blue. Perhaps we could have provided a little bit more of information of how he feels after getting his wish taken. Frustrated he's so sleepy unlike his old self, which he doesn't realize who he used to be because he forgot. It also causes more insight to what really happens when a wish is taken away, losing their individual spark, and to get that part of himself back, he was desperate enough to turn the gang in for that wish to come true. The concept of magic. The concept of magic is very vague in Wish. It's supposed to be this wonderful thing, but it's really limited only to two characters, being Magnifico and Star, and by association Asha, but it's mostly due to Star's magic. In canon, there isn't really a good showcase on what either character can do. Magnifico can take and grant wishes and make them fly. Star can make animals and plants talk and can bring joy to others, and it's not really a strong portrayal of magic. If Magnifico is able to study magic, then that means anybody can, right? And I think it's interesting that nobody else has attempted to, but that's not really the point since I think he would have a rule that only he could use magic anyways, which would further support his disdain for Star and Asha. What I think the movie was trying to say, and which was completely evident, was that everyone has magic, or everybody has the ability to do magic. This is probably because of the origin of magic for Wish would be stars, and as Asha says at the climax, we're all stars. And she means that literally. But I feel like that information again falls flat because it was never really built up or hinted at. I mean, a lot of the flaws in the storytelling of Wish I realize is that it does a lot of convenient telling and never a lot of showing. I see a lot of people water down the climax to Wish to defeating Magnifico with the power of song and the power of friendship, which yes they do, but it's never explained why exactly. They defeat him with the power of song because they combine the magic inside of their hearts to defeat him, but this was never clear, at least upon first watch for me, or for those who can easily miss it. I just wish that they could have explored the concept of magic a little bit more than they did in the movie. For the story of Wish, I would have wanted it to relatively be the same premise, except it wouldn't be Saba's birthday, it would be Asha's, or at least the day before Asha's 18th birthday. She has read and told the stories of the history of Rosas many times, so she understands soon she'll have to make and give her wish to King Magnifico. But there's an internal problem, she doesn't really know what to wish for, but overhearing her Saba talk about the wonders of potentially getting his wish granted, she decides she wants to wish for his wish to be granted. Before they depart, maybe the family can discuss how excited they are for Asha to soon turn 18, and that her father will be proud to see how much he's grown. They reminisce a bit before Asha goes off for her big day. Instead of acting as a tour guide for the incoming citizens, I would kind of want City of Rosas to be similar to Little Town and Beauty and the Beast, where she sings about the wonderful city, but during the number demonstrating how well she gets along with the people through her daily routine. She could either be teaching kids the history of Rosas, assisting the elderly with any errands, helping out with the citizens in need, showing that she can be a person that the City of Rosas can depend on. She does all of these things while slowly heading towards the castle to meet up with Dahlia and the other friends before her interview to be the king's apprentice. The scenes would relatively be the same, except Asha has a different type of nervousness when it comes to talking about herself. She's so used to talking about other folks that when it comes to herself, her words jumble a bit, and she picks herself up when she's able to talk about her father and the impact that he has on her life. The duet at all costs would be the same, leading to her finding Sabino's wish and then asking Magnifico to grant it, but she practically immediately takes it back, thinking she's out of line, but the scene continues to play out as they look at Sabino's wish. When it comes to the truth of the wishes and Magnifico's true intents of not granting them at all, nor giving it back, Asha is a bit more stern with her morals and sense of justice, to which Magnifico emphasizes she, more than anyone, should understand how the wishes work, and that she herself has to give him her wish once she turns 18 tomorrow. Asha then refuses, but Magnifico tries to win her over by demonstrating the wish ceremony later. After the wish ceremony, he still tells her the line, "Obviously I won't be giving you the role of my apprentice," but he also adds the line, "It's the kingdom's policies. You have no choice but to give me your wish tomorrow. If you don't, I'll consider it as an act of betrayal to the kingdom." To which Asha is in a big dilemma as she goes home to her grandpa, being saddened about his wish not being granted. Like in the movie, Asha tells him about the truth. He denies her attempts on her telling him his wish, and doesn't want to know a wish that won't ever come true. Asha runs off not knowing what to do, but then she recalls her dad's words about the stars and proceeds her solo in this wish, finally making her wish but wishing it to the stars instead of Magnifico, in which the stars grant her connection to Star, thus officially and unintentionally challenging Magnifico. The same little shenanigans with Star happens, but I would have want to cut the I'm a Star song out. I don't know why I have such beef with I'm a Star. I think it's just a little too silly, but anyways. With the magic of Star, Asha gets motivated to try and sneak into the castle and attempt to rescue not just her mom and Sabino's wishes, but as many as she can. For this plan to work, she needs the help of her friends to be a distraction, half to help her infiltrate the castle and the other half to stall Magnifico during his great speech. Once she's in Magnifico's chamber with the wish, she could get Star's help to find the wishes of her mom and Sabino first, but Star is unable to find them. Worried about the amount of time that they have, Asha asks Star to free a select few of the wishes, to which Star Star happily agrees with. Some wishes are free during Magnifico's speech and he gets stunned to see them. The wishes return to their owners, and upon feeling them, they remember the warm feelings that the wishes bring them. In a bit of held back rage, he asks the citizens to give them back to him. Some do, but some refuse, saying that they want to remember the wishful feeling, and this causes a conflict and a questioning from the people. He then silences them and practically forces the wishes out of their hands and around him. He claims that even if they have their wishes, there is no one who can grant the wishes aside from him, and if they find the person who let out the wishes or betrayed the kingdom, Magnifico will then grant them their wish. He then goes back to the castle for his villain number before deciding to succumb to the forces of dark magic. The light magic messing with the wishes ruined the people's perception of him, which caused Magnifico to make the irrational decision to turn to the dark magic. After Asha hears the song as a threat to her and Star, the trio is trembling and runs back home to confide in Asha's mom and her grandpa. She tells them the truth about Magnifico and the wishes. The three try and figure out what to do until Magnifico finds Asha in her home, telling her that she's been turned in by someone. However, he also tells her that he has always known that she was a traitor since their debate the other day, and he just needed evidence. Asha wonders what he's going to do to her, but he states that he isn't going to do anything to her. Asha, being selfless, could care less about what happens to her, but she cares so much about the people around her. And then he reveals that he purposely kept the wishes of her mom and Saba, revealing the wishes to the family, and to make sure Asha doesn't pursue anything else reckless, he destroys not her mother's wish, but Saba's wish in front of the family. This causes pain to surge through Sabino's heart and causes him to collapse. Asha, her mom, and Star are in distress over seeing this, but Magnifico decides he wants to use this chance to take Star, similar to the movie. Star, however, decides to protect Asha and her family with the power of its magic, a gigantic force field. This is an example of how Star's magic could be portrayed in the movie. Seeing that Magnifico isn't able to do anything with the strong magic of Star, he retreats. But not before wishing Asha a happy birthday. And Asha and Star then go back to her mom and Saba. And unfortunately, the heartbreak of the broken wish causes him distress and weakness, and he is dying. Before he dies, Asha tells him his wish. To recap, his wish was to inspire the next generation. And he lights up realizing how harmless and beautiful it is, but how he wishes he could have done it himself. But Asha tells him he already has. He inspires her to be her best self and to many others who have met him. And Sabino's heart feels full knowing that he is able to achieve his wish after all. He is thankful that Asha helped him grant his wish, and he passes away peacefully. Grieving, Asha talks with her mom about how she wishes she could have done more for Sabino and the others. But her mom tells her that she already did so much for him. She did what Magnifico couldn't do. She was the one who granted Sabino's wish. And this causes Asha to realize that they don't need Magnifico's permission to grant wishes, nor does he really have the power to. The wish was Sabino's and he already granted it himself. Asha then has a new goal to help free all the wishes and return them back to the people. She tells her mom to stay home with Sabino as she goes with Star and Valentino to go to the castle. At this time, Magnifico does his wish ceremony to grant Simon his wish to reward him for telling him about Asha, to which Simon outs the other friends as accomplices to Asha. The other friends run to Bazima's hiding place to recollect their thoughts, which they meet Asha and where they sing their number. The rest of the movie will play similarly to the actual movie, but there's a lot more done with the final climax and the conversations between Asha and Magnifico. Asha and Magnifico would have a conflicting argument about their morals, about their perspective on the situation. Magnifico completely believes that he's in the right. He believes that he's doing this for the people and to protect them. And Asha fights with him saying, if you believe you're protecting them, then why are they hurting so much? You believe that you're the only person who can grant wishes, but you're wrong. People can grant their own wishes. I've seen it, and everyone can do it too. Magnifico does acknowledge a bit of his faults through his conversations with Asha, but ultimately he is too far gone with his actions and proceeds to suck in Star with his staff and leave Asha defeated. With Star's defeat, Asha feels hopeless and looks up to the sky, in which helps Asha turn to the realization of the connection that people realize as being stars, quite literally, and each having their own magic. Cue the reprise of this wish, and Magnifico is defeated, but I would want the staff to be shattered when Star escapes. In my head, since it never made sense to why Magnifico was imprisoned in the staff instead, the movie would play out similarly to the ending. The only difference is that there's a scene between Magnifico and Amaya. They would probably have a heart-to-heart that Magnifico believes in order to redeem himself, he needs to pass the crown on to somebody who's worthy of it, and he passes it on to Queen Amaya. Again, everything else will play similarly to the movie with the happy ending. Star gives Asha the magic wand as a birthday gift, and I would have wanted Asha to have a transformation after Star sprinkles its magic all over her, but that's just me. And then the city of Rosas lives happily ever after. Of course, the overall message I would have wanted to talk about is how every individual has the ability to grant their own wish. In the rewrite, we are able to see that Asha and the people of Rosas were under the impression that they needed to rely on only Magnifico to have their wishes granted. But in the end, Asha as well as Saba was able to grant their own wishes and have the ability to do so. But this also has always been the case, even with Magnifico, who would have worked hard as a kid to have attained his wish on becoming a grand sorcerer, granting his own wish on his own accord. I think there wasn't really an overall message or moral of the story in which people People were allowed to pursue their own wishes in the end, but it still seems like they were going to heavily rely on Asha as their fairy godmother and the power of magic. In the end, I don't even think I can blame the creative team, writers, and artists for the outcome of Wish. Obviously, there were lots of brilliant ideas that were passed along and concepts that have yet to leave the papers. If anything, we have the corporate bosses and higher-ups to blame for wanting to keep it safe, not wanting to take any risks to make their movies good and appealing, but just enough to keep the kiddos entertained, just enough to be decent but not good. Like other animated commentary YouTubers state, Disney doesn't have to try anymore. All they need to do is continue creating their safe space, and by doing the bare minimum, they can make do. With the writer's strike that happened recently and the multiple layoffs that artists in the industries have had with big names like Disney, it's no wonder that people turn to more indie studios or stories from smaller creators to enjoy. And I just hope that with the future of Disney's animated movies, we'll be able to get something truly magical again. And if not, then it'll be something fun for me to try and rewrite another alternate story to. If you made it to the end, thanks for going down this hole with me. Until next time.